Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the SDGs by 2030 and to build back better, we will need a vibrant and innovative private sector that is able to seize the opportunities to solving the problems that hamper today's progress and to take solutions to scale. My name is Marta Perez-Cuso, and my mission at ESCAP is to promote inclusive technology and innovations, and that includes promoting inclusive business. For today's session, we will discuss what we mean by inclusive business, a relatively new concept, and how it differs from other complementary approaches that support and promote responsible business. And to do that, we will showcase examples of inclusive business in Southeast Asia, how governments in this sub-region have been promoting inclusive business, and how business associations, development partners, civil society organizations can promote more inclusive business. To do that, I would like to introduce you to our distinguished panel, who will help us discover the potential of inclusive business. We have Mr. Sarang Song, who is the CEO of Amru Rice in Cambodia. We have with us Mr. Brian Tiller, President Director of Martina Berto, a company of Marta Tilar Group in Indonesia. We also have His Excellency, Mr. Heng Sokung, State Secretary of the Ministry of Industry, Science, Technology and Innovation from Cambodia. We have our international expert on inclusive business coming from the Philippines, Ms. Melanie Moleño. And last but not least, Mr. Marcus Dietrich, who is the Director of Policy at the Inclusive Business Action Network. Now that you know who is our distinguished panelists, we will also like to know who else is on the room. So we have prepared a couple of poll questions to know how familiar, to get a sense of how familiar you are with inclusive business and which sector are you coming from. So if you can answer that poll. In the website. Unfortunately, I cannot see the website. And unfortunately, I'm not able to see the results of the poll. Okay. So I see that most of you understand the key concepts of inclusive business. Those I have already responded. And for the other question, to try to understand where you're coming from, if you're from the business sector, from government or academia. Okay, could we move to the second question to see if those in the room? Okay, so most of you are development partners. So we'll try to focus our presentations and discussions more on trying to delve a bit deeper on inclusive business, given that most of you are somewhat familiar with inclusive, and also to explore what's the role that development partners in particular can play to promote inclusive businesses. To start with, and to make sure that everyone is familiar with what we mean by inclusive business, I'll make a very brief presentation of how we define inclusive business and why it's important to promote inclusive business. So we could have my presentation on, please. Thank you. So there's a wide spectrum of market-based approaches between non-profit organizations and traditional for-profit organizations that support social good and environmental sustainability. And those include traditional NGOs that introduce for-profit activities to fund their charity activities, social enterprises that aim for the double bottom line, businesses that introduce responsible business conducts or that develop strategic corporate social responsibility programs, and inclusive business. The definition that we use by inclusive business is that these are businesses that provide goods, services, and livelihoods on a commercial basis, either at scale or with the potential to provide them at scale, to people living at the base of the economic pyramid, and engage them as suppliers, distributors, retailers, or consumers. This is the definition adopted by the G20 as well as by the ASEAN community. And basically what it says is that inclusive business are businesses that are inclusive, that is, are organizations that operate on a commercial basis. So this is not charity, it's a business. And that they're inclusive because they provide goods and services to those at the base of the economic pyramid. And inclusive business go beyond respecting human rights, and they do an additional work of providing enhanced income opportunity or affordable goods and services. So it's going beyond doing what the law requires and doing additional step to support those at the base of the economic pyramid. Many of those, they're important because they bring solutions at scale. And we can find them in many different sectors. Many of those operate in agribusiness, and we'll hear from a couple of them. But we can also find them in other sectors relevant for low-income people, like providing affordable access to energy, access to training and education, to affordable housing, etc. And here are some examples of real inclusive business from Southeast Asia. And as mentioned, inclusive business are important because, as I have hinted, there are three triple wins. They bring wins for companies as they now have increased market opportunities and investment opportunities. It also brings benefits to poor and low-income populations as this business offer above market rate income generation opportunities, access to affordable essential goods and services, and also access to technologies, expertise, and new suppliers and markets for micro and small enterprises. And they are also interesting for governments because they help lift people out of poverty at scale, and they deliver relevant and affordable goods and services. And with targeted support and facilitation, there is potential to generate and promote more inclusive business. Inclusive business models can be built. And there are two ways of approaching this. First one is to support mainstream businesses to fine-tune one or several of their business model and to transform it into an inclusive business model. The second approach is to support social enterprises to scale up their operations so that they can bring solutions at scale. For these reasons, ESCAP, together with IBAN, has been supporting inclusive business at the national and at the regional level in Southeast Asia. And we have done so through conducting national landscape studies and providing advice to national governments on strategies that they can put in place to promote inclusive business. We have also collaborated with the OECD and with the ASEAN Secretariat to promote inclusive business at the regional level. And we've been conducting annual summits of inclusive business, so the annual Asean Ib Summit, and also supported the adoption of the guidelines for promoting an inclusive business in ASEAN. This is a very relevant document that will guide how to promote inclusive business in ASEAN. So this is a very brief introduction on what we mean by inclusive business. Now let's hear from our panelists. And I would like to start today's conversation by exploring real, actual business models and how they are supporting low-income communities as part of the core business and beyond philanthropy. Saran, you're the CEO of Amru Rice, Cambodia's largest exporter of organic rice. An inclusive business, and also an inclusive business that is able to provide enhanced income opportunities to low-income farmers at large scale. Can you share with us about your inclusive business models and what type of innovations you have introduced to be able to be profitable while working with low-income markets? What type of collaborations have also now introduced and put in place to make your business resilient, particularly in the face of COVID-19? So if you can share the secrets of your inclusive business model, over to you.
Thanks, Martha. Good afternoon, everyone. Amru Rice has been work and with partnership model with the farmers. An inclusive business model, we define how we are doing business, bringing the farmer products, source from them, financing them. Our inclusive business has been addressed the prevalent constraint linking of their products, especially smallholder farmers, to the markets. Doing so, we provide all support from seeds to the market. We provide the unique product for the farmer under contract farming by assure to buy the farmer products. Amru partnership model with a smallholder farmer mostly engage through contract farming model where they supply us the quality we compliant to the rice standard, adapt to environmental friendly, sustainable production, such as organic rice and sustainable agriculture standards. Farmer has been trained those standards so they can adopt and practices to their farms, inspection their members, monitoring the crops to ensure the compliance. Amru had asked, we ensure to buy about the market price. We commit a fair trade with the prevalent market products by giving the premium incentive price where we sell their product to the market. We also linked NGO partners, service provider to support those farmers, ensure the farmer give low input price by purchasing a bulk raw material, then they can get a better bargaining negotiation price for input. Amru also provides certified seeds, organic fertilizer input, and other technical assistance. We also ensuring the certification from European organic standard and US standard for the farmer. Agriculture cooperative has been trained on how to be agripreneurship. They've been joined in Amru platform we call public-private producer partnership, where they've been able to get more understanding how the market move, what is the standard, the product quality they can supply to the market. And as you know, the platform, we also give them a possibility to store their crops in the warehouse, dry to the and store in the warehouse. The farmer can wait or they can sell and access financing from the banks, especially from the rural agriculture and rural development bank. This is very important because during the harvest, farmers have been pressured by the crops. They need money, so they have to sell at low price. Doing the warehousing and the partnership with Amru, farmer can wait and see the opportunity, then they can sell later. This means the farmer can earn about 10 to 20% more from their market opportunity. Compliant to the quality, make Amru also competitive in the market, where Amru can get a margin, can earn more than we can pay to a premium to the farmer. This is called inclusive business, where Amru also get profits and the farmer also profit. To success this model, Amru had to define our definition by giving the farmer thirds and Amru get one. So meaning in $100, for example, Amru take 30, farmer get 70%, more than 70% from the product generated. Why we increasing more margin to the farmer? To inclusive business, farmer is far behind in terms of capital, resources, knowledge, information. So they need to ensure more margin, then they can participate in supply chain. In the pandemic, we have been see the farmer has been struggling, where unemployment from garment factories, black farmer going back home, returning from Thailand and other area go to produce agricultures. Government have been a lot of intervention to support agricultures, meaning produce a lot of agriculture products. It likely farmer need to sell more market. So our primary innovation, meaning train farmer to shift more chemical or conventional to more organics, right? Organic products, where they can get more high premium and niche market for them. Our competitive is very strong competitive in producing those niche market, where they can have very strong branding and in the global market. We introduce rodent practices, environmental friendly, sustainable production through our own organic fertilizers by using rice husk from milling, and we mixing with the manual to become organic fertilizers, so reduce the import. Mean we reduce 30% of the price compared to import organic fertilizers. We also introduce crops more tolerant to the climate resilient practices. Also, for example, using rice husk as the organic fertilizer supply to the cooperative, and the cooperative collaborate with the developing partner to help the farmer getting the fuel seeds, as well as among the family, smallholder farmer family. We also need to add values to the farmer, because farmer always have insufficient fund or financing in farm. So ensuring the value added through sell raw paddy to pack rice, meaning we process their paddy and become high process value added in the final products. So through our system like milling, compliant automatic milling, X-ray system, so the farmer can get more compliant, especially for the baby food products. It's very niche product where farmer can earn extra income. And what we do in collaboration to ensure the farmer can make their business resilient. You know, during this COVID-19, AMRO still implement the project with those farmers. Our innovation is joint effort with the service provider, NGO partner in the using technology. So we can't meet face to face, but technology have helped a lot in terms of business trading. So we've set up the blockchain called BlockRice with Oxfam and also with Dutch technology company, where farmer can trace and also benefit from the supply of rice. Technology. We also propose the new sustainable practices where farmer can save from water in farming. They can do practices sustainable rice, especially in sustainable platform. The sustainable rice platform is being launched in partnership with IFCs, where International Finance Corporation of the World Bank been joining with AMRO to provide training and producing sustainable rice standard, especially around Tonle Sap Lake. We also brought more indigenous people, especially living on the highland area. They are minority, they speak their language. They don't know who is the buyer, don't know the market, especially in Mandalkiri, in Prague here, still trying to be in our supply chain. They are very poor, and we are happy because they now can grow the organic products, especially rice, and supply to AMRO with the compliance seed. We immediately have been partnership with the European company to purchase their products. Somehow they get directly from low price at the local price. For example, before we are joining, they just got $220 per ton, and now they get $350 per ton. It's likely about $100 margin just for AMRO being in those area. This is very big impact. Doing so, we believe diversified is always a potential for their extra income. So AMRO have been diverse to other crop than rice. We are in investment on organic cassava, organic cashew nut, organic black peppers, by partnership with cooperative, more than 100 cooperative in Cambodia. Then they have more influence and more market than rice. Yeah, so what is been here, I'm very happy to share, and our inclusive business model right now can say one of the best success in our business, and it can prove that this really provide jobs. This and mostly they have low income now, get more better job, better payment, and better income. Yeah, so I'm really happy to show today. Thank you, Mata.
Thank you very much, Saran. This is, I think, a very inspiring inclusive business model as you talk about the continuous innovations that you introduce even during COVID times to keep diversifying, adding value. It's also inspiring to hear how you are passing on those additional benefits also to farmers and providing them with 70% of the margin. And I think, of course, it sounds like a part of your success is because you've been able to work in partnerships with a very diverse group of cooperative agricultures groups and also development partners. So this is a very, very inspiring business model, and thank you for proving that there's commercial possibilities to develop business with low income communities that make sense, both socially and economically. Let's now hear from a second business example, and I'd like to give this opportunity to Brian. You're the president of director of Martina Berto company from the Marketler Group in Indonesia, which produces and markets cosmetics and traditional medicine. And I'll be grateful if you could share with our audience how your company supports farmers in the production of organic herbs for your cosmetics, and how the Marta Tiller Group empowers low-income women through training, employment, and income opportunities above the market rate. And maybe also, of course, tell us a bit how you have been affected by COVID-19 and how you're supporting low-income populations to recover from this economic and health crisis. Thank you. Over to you, Brian.
You can hear me? Hello?
Perfect.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes? Yes? Hello?
Very good. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Let me share that some that the Martina Berto and Marta Tila group do for the inclusive business model. So the Marta Tila group has several of business units. Is We are in the defense industry. The business was founded by Mrs. Marta Tila and her families. And what we are doing in terms of the corporate citizenship program or corporate sustainability is okay. The four pillars beautifying Indonesia. So last year, the business has been for 50 years. This year is gonna be 51 years. So there are four pillars. First of all is beauty green. The second is the beauty education, uh, beauty culture, empowering women. Next slide, please. Okay. 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 So for the beauty green, that we are doing the training of the organic farmers, yeah, throughout Indonesia, and planting about 1,000 mangrove on one of the beach and Kebumen located at Central Java. And we also built the Kampung Jama Organic in Cikarang, a greater area in Jakarta, as a conservation for the area, cosmetic and aromatic plants, yeah, toka, tanaman toka. So if you have a chance, come down to Jakarta, you can see the Kampung Jamo Organic, very close, next to the Cikarang Industrial Estate. That's the beauty green. So next slide is the okay. We are also doing the beauty educations. Yeah. Next slide, please. The beauty education that we are collaborating with the one of the our business unit. Oh, that's the beauty culture. Okay. Okay, that's the beauty educations. So Puspita Malta International Beauty School, that's for the training, yeah, the training for the many Indonesian female uh, want to be the makeup artist, haircut expert, skincare specialists, yeah, beautypreneurs, and we are also doing lots of beauty classes around Indonesia. That because Indonesia has lots of potential, you know, and our positioning is we beautify Indonesia. So 50 years beautifying Indonesia. And next slide is we are doing also the beauty culture, that we appreciate the culture of the Indonesia art, the natural resources. And next slide. Next slide is about the empowering woman. Yeah. So, okay, those spa therapists training and scholarships, those ladies coming from the very unfortunate families, yeah, in the small village, and so we educate them so they can get the social welfare, yeah, for herself and of course for their families, yeah. Providing Sparta scholarships to more than 6,000 women living in the remote areas of Indonesia. And next slide. We are also doing training for the herbal drink seller. In Bahasa Indonesia is jamu gendong. So comprehensive training include introduction of herbal plants and their benefits, hygiene and chemical-free herbal production training, pricing, entrepreneurship training, marketing and branding training. So they can get their social welfare. Yeah. Uh, they come also to they are also coming from the unfortunate families. Yeah, so we do training, uh, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship, marketing and branding, pricing. So that's very important that uh, they will be able to be a small medium enterprise business entrepreneur. And next slide is we are also doing the program with GIZ. GIZ. That's the German institutions. Yeah? Community developments. So that's the thing that that we are doing. Uh, Answering your questions. And doing the corporate sustainability, corporate social responsibility, corporate citizenship is very, very important for us. So we can contribute to the Indonesian society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for highlighting how, as part of the core business, your core business, you're supporting women, in particular women from low income groups in Indonesia. And this is something that characterizes inclusive business, is that the actions to support low income populations are central to the core of the business. It's not a side activity like a business creates a small school in where it's located, but you're providing support to low-income communities as a central part of your own business. And I also see some similarities with Sarang, that you're diversifying your business and seeking different opportunities in spa, in healthy drinks, in herbs, and collaborating with other partners in wellness tourism. And of course, working at the UN and where we promote women entrepreneurship, it's good to see dedicated programs that support not only women to train, but also to find a job and to become entrepreneurs. So thank you very much for sharing this experience. So we have now heard about two business models that are inclusive. And of course, you will agree with me that these offer great potential to lift people out of poverty and to build back better. And this is why governments across Southeast Asia have been interested in promoting more of these businesses. So let me now turn into His Excellency Heng Sukung, State Secretary from the Ministry of Industry, Science, Technology and Innovation. You have committed to promote inclusive business in Cambodia, and you're putting a national framework to promote this type of businesses. Can you tell us, Excellency, a bit more about the inclusive business enabling environment for Cambodia strategy that you're leading on, and maybe share your thoughts on why other governments should also pay attention to promoting inclusive business, and what are the key elements of your strategy? Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. Of course, I just heard from our friend from Indonesia a lot of the word of Marthas. I think you can explain me later on about the meaning of Martha. First of all, allow me to express my gratitude and thankfulness to our friends, especially to the moderator, Martha, for your gratefulness introductions and, of course, your slide presentation regarding to the IBs for both the government and the private sectors, and also for the poor people. Of course, the government of Cambodia is right now we do a lot of things regarding to what we are do, especially for the post-COVID-19 recovery of everybody, especially Cambodian and the whole world are fighting against this pandemic. Let me also wish to thank, to convey our best regard from my Minister, His Excellency Untitled Chapter, to the various business support, especially for the whole stakeholder from our friends. We have UNESCAP here, the IBAN, the OECD, the ASEAN, and others UN family. You may know that in 2017, the ASEAN community, through the SME working group, in a discussion on inclusive business. In 2020, the economic ministers of ASEAN endorsed the guideline for the promotion of the inclusive business in ASEAN. 12 comprehensive recommendations for promoting inclusive business in ASEAN. The result, the effort to promote the IB at the ASEAN and national levels. The majority of ASEAN member states are engaging actively in inclusive business policy development. Many countries in the region, such as Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Vietnam, are witnessing impressive progress with the development of national IB studies, the identification of the champions and focal points, and the definition of policy area for IB promotions. So did Cambodia in 2019, work with the ESCAP support and IBAN. We developed a landscape studies on inclusive business in our country. The study analyzes companies with a potential IB business line, assess the enabling environment for IB, and made key recommendations on how to move the agenda forward. In 2020, we then developed the recommendation further into a strategy for a better enabling environment for Cambodia. We call IBC strategies. The IBCs were endorsed by our ministry in March 2021 and is now finalized for cabinet approval. IBC linked to the new SME development policy 2021-2025 and the implementation of the new 5 years national development plan, as we call in SDP 2019 and 2023, and also the midterm review of the IDP, the Industrial Development Policy 2020 to 2025, calling for the making economic growth in Cambodia more inclusive and beneficial to the poor and low-income people, as we call like the bottom 40% income groups, at the base of the income pyramid. To this end, the SDP embarked on diversifying the economy and engaging in a more innovative way the private sector to create good income opportunities and relevant and affordable goods and services for the poor and low-income people. IB fit nicely into this agenda of the dynamic private sector that delivers results for the BOP and for the pro-poor dimension of the Sustainable Development Goal SDG. However, while most private sector firms work with or sell to the poor in some way or other, only few very specific private sector business provide relevant solution to the poor in which they can earn sustainably more than the market rate or buy goods and services relevant to overcome poverty and exclusion. Such companies are called inclusive business IB. Even though IB is a pretty new concept for Cambodia, it surely is quite relevant to the Cambodian policy and context as emerging lower middle income country, striving to become an upper middle income country by 2030 and to the high income country by 2050. We still have a lot of development gaps, but IB will help closing them with scale-up solution for the income and living standard problem of the bottom 40% people in our country. Our new IB strategy, the IBCs, will not only guide and promote more IB business in Cambodia, but will become instrumental in facilitating and coordinating with private sectors to provide interim solution to any regulatory bottlenecks. I would like to salute the strong endorsement by our Senior Minister, His Excellency Untitled Chapter, and his dedication to promote IB through pragmatic policy level approach. His support to the recent launch of the IB landscape study, the drive to bring the IB strategy to high government approval, the suggestion to currently prepare a 3-year rolling IBC implementation plan with input from many stakeholders. His engagement to get technical assistance financing and helping company with business coaching, accreditation, knowledge sharing and advocacy, a risk reduction fund policy, incentives, and exposures at the regional ASEAN levels. I also would like to thank the strong commitment not only from company coming up with a model like the Amrurai of Mr. Ognyasarons and others companies, but also from business association, investor, facilitators, and development partners like UN System or IBAN to support the agenda. We all together have done a lot of already, and we will do more in coming 3 years for 2022 when Cambodia is chairing ASEAN. Our minister has already committed hosting the 5th ASEAN Inclusive Business Summit and the 3rd ASEAN IB Company Award. Many people in Cambodia already talk about inclusive business becoming the legacy of the Cambodian chair in ASEAN. We really look forward to this. To implement IBC, we need not only strong commitment of our partners to integrate IB focus activity in their ongoing activities. For example, business coaching. We also need dedicated funds to co-finance some of those activities. Our proposed technical assistance facility would require about $2 million over the coming 4 years, and the risk reduction and social innovation funds about $20 million. We thank to the UN system and all development partners raising those funding. And some of these, like the risk reduction fund or even business coaching, we could even do at a regional level. So what do we want to have achieved in 3 years? Basically, less income poverty and better living standard of the BOP through scale-up commercially viable private sector interventions. We have a lot of good examples from Cambodia like Khmer Waters, My Dream Housing, Reward Insurance, Banchi, etc. But let me give you the example. I'd like to give you the example of Amru Rice. As Mr. Saron has been here, an agro-business company which has become the biggest rice exporter of a country through an IB model. I see Song Saron, the CEO of Rurai here, he also raised out a lot about what he did so far. Amrurai sources rice from traders, but also has a major business line where it is working directly with rice and cassava farmers. This direct sourcing is the IB business line. His company worked directly with about 25,000 farmers, up from 10,000 in 2016, and project to involve about 50,000 by 2023. About 30% of the smallholders has income less than $2, 65 from low-income household with income of less than $3.2 per capita per day. Farmer working with Amru Rice can earn up about $10 a day, and the company can pay about 20 to 30% more than the market rate goes with its high productivity and innovations. What I find fascinating is that the leadership is really thinking about reducing risk of the farmers. For example, by guaranteeing loans to microfinance institutions, thereby reducing interest rate and getting rid of collateral requirement from the banks, but also binding the farmer to their company. Needless to say that the company practices high environmental and social safeguard. Amru Rice will be one of the 20 companies we are going to officially accredit in July 2021 and give the first official IB Business Award. You can see if it one company, we can change poverty about 50,000 people by 2025. How relevant the IB course is for the government to promote more such companies engaging in IB business lines. This is not only an agro business, but in all sectors. I think the 2019 landscape study identified 20 companies benefiting more than 800,000 people and creating a revenue of $81 million in 2018. Projection of the company business plan show huge growth with the revenues and social reach more than double by 2023 to $150 million and 1.7 million people. Of course, COVID-19 might have changed this, but here is that IB company overcome the negative socio-economic impact of the pandemic better. The IBC strategy focuses on 8 areas to promote inclusive business in Cambodia. 1. Awareness. Fostering information sharing and awareness raising through event, publication, websites, media, and IB awards. 2. Coordinations. Identifying IB champion, establishing IB focal points in the government agencies and private sector associations, and establishing steering committee for alliance action. 3. Accreditation. Creating registration or accreditation system to enhance participation of companies and monitor the social impact of the private sectors in the countries. 4. Public procurement. Embedding poor target into government contract and prioritizing procurement from IB companies, especially those that have obtained accreditations. 5. Incentives. Together with the private sector, designing a suitable incentive system to stimulate the adoption and growth of the IB model. 6. Finance. Developing financial product for the needs of IB, such as the risking fund for investor, and fostering such a suitable investment linkage, such as facilitating impact investment. And 7. Technical assistance. Creating facility especially dedicated to support IB by providing business coaching, supporting business development, and fostering innovation exchange, as well as to support actors to strengthen the overall ecosystem for IBs. 8. Monitoring and reporting. Developing strong monitoring system and systematically report the contribution of IB to the SDGs. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, let me take the opportunity to share our heartfelt sympathy to the people and the business harshly affected by the COVID-19 around the world. And let us promote a joint effort to recover. I firmly believe that the inclusive business would play a crucial role in post-COVID-19 recovery and way forward, especially for the B4T. While I thank for all for their support in the past, I wish to reiterate that now is the time for new bold commitment in this new normal, because now we will build back better. Our government, the business association, and the private sector, the investor, we are all ready to prove that with IB, we can create a new dynamic in this new normal era. Thank you very much, Martha, and thank you all.
Thank you, Excellency Heng Sokung. Thank you for driving inclusive business in Cambodia, one of the earliest countries to governments to do so in Southeast Asia. And I take a number of points from your presentation. One is that, as you said, one company alone, one inclusive business model can have a very large impact. And that means that the type of support that governments may want to provide is different than the support or the type of policies that you provide for SMEs, because here is you will be working with a much more limited number of companies, but the potential of impact of creating jobs, better incomes, more affordable goods and services is huge. And the second point that I take is the number of actions that governments can take. I mean, you cited, I think, eight point of actions, starting by generating awareness about this new concept, but also about providing business coaching, accreditation, supporting financing or access to finance for new investments by inclusive businesses. So thank you very much for sharing the experience of Cambodia so far, and for leading and for the efforts of Cambodia to lead this as part of their chairmanship. I am sure that 2022 will be a critical year for the continued promotion of inclusive business in Southeast Asia. Let me now, with that, turn to Ms. Melanie Moleño. Melanie, you have been closely involved in the promotion of inclusive business in the Philippines. And the Philippines was the first country to introduce a set of measures to recognize inclusive business, to register and provide tax incentives. So could you please share with us a bit more about the measures that were introduced by the government of the Philippines to promote inclusive business? And I've heard that you're already on a second stage of promoting inclusive business, and that there is a new bill for promoting inclusive business that has just very recently filed in Congress and the Senate. So perhaps if you can tell us a bit this second phase of initiative as well. Thanks very much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Martha. The Philippines' involvement in IB has been around for quite a while, right? We have been promoting it since 2013, mostly with the Board of Investments on the government side and the Philippine Business for Social Progress on the development sector side. Fortunately, I was involved in both organizations. So anyway, on the government side, way back in 2014, IB investments were broadly encouraged through the 2014 to 2016 Investment Priorities Plan. The Investment Priorities Plan, or the IPP, is a 3-year rolling plan which identifies economic activities in various industries that are eligible for investment incentives. So through various consultations and studies conducted, it then kind of showed that there was a need for a policy to be in place to further encourage businesses to integrate MSMEs in their value chains. As a result, IB models was included in the 2017 to 2019 Investment Priorities Plan. IB models is still included as one of the priority activities in the 2020 Investment Priorities Plan. Under this IPP that I was talking about, companies engaged in IB under the agribusiness and tourism sectors are eligible for an additional year of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives on top of the regular 4-year incentive. To get the incentive, registered IB models need to meet some thresholds in the following components: reach and depth and innovation. In the reach and depth, it mostly focuses on the company's engagement of low-income communities and social impact. Companies applying for IB incentives are expected to engage low-income individuals, as employees or suppliers. Income increases of these individuals are monitored to prove that the company was indeed able to provide sustainable livelihoods and decent jobs. The policy was designed to stimulate businesses to go beyond business as usual, and of course, spur innovation through types of assistance that they give to better capacitate the low-income communities and link them to market. When I was still managing the Inclusive Business Program under the Board of Investments way back in 2018, that was the first year of implementation. The projected impact of the first 5 registered companies were, I suppose, quite impressive because cumulatively at the end of their 3rd year of commercial operations, these 5 IB models, 2 of which are in tourism and 3 are in agribusiness, were expected to have employed over 1,200 marginalized individuals and annually source a total of around roughly $60 million worth of goods and services from micro and small enterprises. So we see that these are only 5 models, right? And if these 5 models are indicative of the potential of inclusive business to help reduce poverty in the country, imagine the impact if these 5 models are replicated 10-fold or 100-fold. So back then, I was curious to see what the next registrations will offer. On the 2nd year, we received another 5 registrations. Again, 2 were in tourism and 3 were in agribusiness. They were quite smaller compared to the 1st year because the sourcing of goods dipped down to around 605 million pesos, or around roughly $12.7 million annually. But then, this is still annually. However, the projected employment or engagement of the marginalized individuals more than doubled at over 2,800. So now, here we are talking about the potential of these 10 inclusive business models, no? These are only 10. A company can have multiple projects because, the registration under BOI is a project based. So if a company can have multiple projects, and there are hundreds of thousands of companies in each of our countries, imagine the impact that inclusive business can create, no? If the government, through proper incentive and support, can convince more companies to engage in inclusive business. With regards to recent developments, well, this is quite exciting. No? I'm happy to share that there are now two bills filed, one in the lower house and another in the Senate. In the lower house or Congress, as we call here in the Philippines, House Bill number 9316, or an act to promote inclusive business to support and accelerate inclusive development at the national and local levels through private sector engagement, has been filed on May 11. So this is quite new. However, a couple of weeks later, on May 26, Senate Bill number 2242, or the Inclusive Business Act, entitled An Act to Promote Women's Economic Empowerment Through Inclusive Business to Support and Accelerate Inclusive Development at the national and local levels through private sector involvement, was also filed. It's nice to really see that, there are takers, no? Legislators were willing to take this on. However, before it reached this stage, the initial draft of this bill, way back in 2019, was a product of many collaborations. You see, Inclusive Business Bill was one of the legislative recommendations of the Philippine Development Plan under the current administration. Back then, agreeing that there was a need to institutionalize the program if we want to scale or accelerate the adoption of inclusive business models, I thought then that it was time to push for the bill. Well, the IB program was already in its second year then, and I think by then we have seen sufficient support, sufficient proof of concept, I suppose. Given, however, the limited resources of the unit, I sought external support. Fortunately, ESCAP and IBAN, no, were around to give us some financial and technical support in the drafting of the bill. When I left the Inclusive Business Program Management Office at the end of 2019, the IB advocacy, I suppose, in the Philippines is lucky that Oxfam and Ideals stepped in to continue the consultations and the drafting of the IB bill. And now we have two bills in both houses of Congress. So we are hoping that this bill will get the support needed to pass in both houses. So now, what is different in this bill? We have tried to implement an IB program that is anchored on incentives alone. So I suppose His Excellency earlier is on the right track, no? Expanding or widening the scope of the bill. And we were also talking to Myanmar, no? Earlier last year. And they are also exploring something along those lines. So it's really good. The Philippines is kind of the guinea pig. So countries are learning from whatever we have done and tries to improve on it. So I suppose now we are catching up, no, to Cambodia and the likes. So now there are some learnings that we can take from the first 2 years of implementation of the IB program. Yes, there is an existing policy or office order. So why do we need a law, right? Well, the office order was issued under one agency and it can easily be repealed. And of course, the mandate of the agency is quite limiting, mainly limited to granting incentives. We have had difficulty in amending the IB policy due to those limitations. Under the current policy, only new projects or investments can avail of the incentives. We all know that in the first few years of establishing a business, focusing on community engagement or developing an inclusive business model may not really be high on the priority list of companies. Under the new bill, existing businesses who would want to engage in IB or expand their IB models can avail of incentives. Also, a national action plan and strategy for inclusive business will be created through the creation of a National Inclusive Business Coordinating Council, which this time will be comprised of relevant government agencies and sectors. Done by one agency, IB implementation is tough. The situation is the same if its implementation will be anchored on tax incentives alone. IB program implementation needs the support of other agencies and stakeholders who can provide assistance and support services to both the inclusive businesses and its community partners. What is also different in this bill is that the incentives will be proportionate to the efforts of the companies. We have had challenges in justifying why are we spending taxpayers' money to give as incentive to the companies. If the impact of the company is this much, how much is the tax being waived? So there's quite a lot of pencil pushing, and is it really worth it? So we thought that we can rationalize and that approach through this bill. If the company would want more incentive, then the company would have to invest more in the development of their IB model. The bill, through this bill, companies can claim deductions proportionate, or for proportionate to the labor expenses that they spend, training or capacity building. Of course, goods and materials sourced from micro, small, and medium enterprises and research and development. Through the bill, government agencies also will be kind of tasked to render support to inclusive businesses and community partners by giving access to government programs and services such as public infrastructure, shared service facilities, enterprise capacity building, marketing assistance, technology transfer, business facilitation, and women's economic empowerment. These programs and services are not necessarily new. I mean, they are existing. The bill merely asks the government agencies to align their existing programs and services or give priority to support the market-driven inclusive business model. The bill also gives a heavy emphasis on women empowerment, that aside from encouraging, enabling, and supporting inclusive businesses to be sustainable and profitable, IBs are also gender responsive. So basically, we are widening the scope of the IB program through this bill to properly address the gaps and challenges faced in the program implementation to, I suppose, accelerate inclusive development through private sector engagement. I mean, it's faster if many actors will work in reducing poverty, right? And implementing inclusive development. I mean, the government cannot do it alone. So engaging the private sector will be a key thing in this bill. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Melanie, for giving us the first experience of the Philippines, pinpointing what were some of the limitations, and I'm glad to see this policy learning in how you can fine-tune policies or try to fine-tune policies to have a larger scope. I also take that providing tax incentives is not always sufficient or what inclusive business needs. That sometimes what they value most is that support to develop partnerships to create the right enabling conditions for an inclusive business model to flourish. So thanks very much, Melanie, for sharing this experience from the Philippines, who was the leading country in Southeast Asia. Now let me move to our last, not least, speaker, Marcus Dietri, who is the director of policy at the Inclusive Business Action Network and a close partner of us at ESCAP. Marcus, you have worked over the past few years with ASEAN member states and ESCAP to promote inclusive business in Southeast Asia. can you please give us in a few snapshots of how ASEAN member states have supported the promotion of inclusive business, and maybe share with us some of the lessons that could be relevant for other governments beyond this region to promote inclusive business. Over to you, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Marta. It's a great pleasure being here and sharing with you our insights. If you could pull up the slides now. Yes, excellent. So IBAN has been mentioned a few times. It's the Inclusive Business Action Network, a program funded by Germany and the European Union and implemented by GIZ, the German Development Agency. Can you? Yes. So we've been active since 2014 and with a focus on supporting enabling environments for the scaling of inclusive business. What you see in the middle of the circle is our activities in the field where we are working with companies and policymakers on those topics. In the outer ring, you see our activities represented in running the largest inclusive business digital platform, inclusivebusiness.net. There you find a lot of resources on inclusive business, as well as training programs such as our e-learning Introduction to Inclusive Business, our latest offering in this field. The timeline has been mentioned a few times by His Excellency and also Mel. It's a so the start in ASEAN was in 2017 when the Philippines put IB on the agenda as one of their top deliverables. An outcome of this was the Asean Ib Framework, as well as a very strong statement by the ASEAN leaders in encouraging the members to develop enabling environments. This was taken up by the coordinating committee on SME development in ASEAN, and together with the OECD and ESCAP, IBAN, and supported the AXME members in firstly building capacity. What is inclusive business? What is inclusive business policy? And then working with selected countries on a national level to develop such policies. Along the line, as has been mentioned already, also by Marta, inclusive business summits were hosted, generating further awareness on the topic. IB Awards were organized by the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, and a whole momentum developed with supported or underlined by reports on inclusive business in ASEAN, and with a highlight then of all these developments that we've seen in the ASEAN member states, the guidelines for the promotion of inclusive business were developed, which will now guide policymakers, I would say not only in ASEAN, but globally, on how to promote inclusive business. And we very much look forward to the IB Summit this year, and also, as already announced, next year. So something that was like a one-off event originally in 2017 has developed into an annual event, again, showcasing how important inclusive business has become in ASEAN. So here are some of the highlights of ASEAN IB policy development. The Philippines, you've heard. My slide was already overtaken by events because the bill in the roadmap has not only been drafted, but now filed. Congratulations to Mel and the team. Vietnam, Cambodia, and Malaysia undertook landscape studies in 2019 and 2020 and developed national strategies. Myanmar had done so already before and have institutionalized an IB steering group that is now pushing the way forward for IB. And Indonesia took a sectoral approach and looked at inclusive business in the wellness tourism industries. And you've heard earlier on an example of these efforts. So how did that all come about? I talked about the capacity development for the policymakers, raising awareness, not only of the policymakers, but also among the private sectors and the company. So to kickstart it off on a national level, we implement this IB policy development program. It was now conducted in several ASEAN member states, and we've taken it now also to Africa, and we'll be conducting it in Nigeria and Zambia. So all of those countries are benefiting from the experience. This is now a formalized program we are conducting, and it consists with a national study on IB, the IB landscape studies, during which companies will be interviewed, inclusive business cases identified, such as Amru Rise, and the ecosystem will be analyzed, and policy recommendations will be formulated. In the second step, those draft recommendations are then discussed in public-private dialogues all over the country to strengthen them, to make it a real public-private effort. And then once it's been sort of put out, as His Excellency Heng Sokung has mentioned, a national strategy is developed and approved and then implemented, which is like the third phase. And this is a picture of one of the tourism projects Mel has mentioned, El Nido, which is one of the largest tourism projects within inclusive business. So this is now a program which has been informed by all the activities undertaken in ASEAN member states, which can be adopted by other countries. And in the guidelines, we have listed those 11 policy recommendations to promote inclusive business. This is sort of the result, not of a theoretical exercise, but is driven by the experiences in the countries as we had seen before. Some of those have been mentioned by Cambodia, which is closely aligned to the guidelines recommendations. And I'm not going through them one by one, but I do encourage you to read through those guidelines, as it is a very, very valuable product. And you can see there, for example, at point 6, the IB investment incentive. That's something being done in the Philippines, and you could hear the result of it. This is a sort of a comprehensive set of policy instruments, and is up to each country to see which one are the most relevant. But as Mel mentioned, it's definitely useful to look at the whole set rather than pick only one and drive it to capture the whole potential of inclusive business. The key policy recommendation is certainly the number 3, accreditation and registration. It is necessary to identify inclusive business, and we've developed a solid methodology to do this. Because once the private sector develops those models and the public sector is being asked to support it, there has to be a clear definition and a clear methodology to identify those companies that comply to the IB definitions and the features. So what are some of the lessons learned that we have seen? We found this, it is very important to understand how inclusive business can contribute to the national development agenda. IB really sort of unfolds its full potential if it is connected to a strong agenda of the country. And this could be inclusive growth, poor, SME development, or social welfare. And once the contribution of IB to such agendas can be shown, stakeholders quickly understand what IB can do to further those courses. What we found in the beginning, also working with the ASEAN, was the power of peer group learning, here notably from the Philippines, who had stepped ahead, but also peer group pressure, in a good sense, of encouraging the member states to look over the borders and see what their neighbors are doing. And we've seen a lot of progress and interest through those interactions. The other point I want to make here, it is brave of a policymaker to innovate. In times when it is sort of maybe more convenient, I wouldn't say, but where it's sort of maybe easier to look at already fairly developed models and adopt it to their country. It takes a step of faith to innovate new policies and policy instruments on inclusive business. And obviously the importance of the public and the private sector champions. You've seen here a selected range of them who've understood the concept, who are fully behind inclusive businesses and who can push it. And this is what is needed to put forward this agenda. And the last one has been mentioned as well a few times. There is a growing ecosystem supporting inclusive business. And by this, I would explicitly mention the UN organizations. UNESCAP, of course, at the forefront here in Southeast Asia, but UNDP on a global level. We've seen UNCTAD, who is now also integrate inclusive business into their EMPRETEC center training programs. And we've seen many other UN organizations, but also other organizations from the impact investor side, from facilitators, who are taking more and more interest in inclusive business, and thereby supporting the businesses who have to do the effort on the ground, develop and implement those models. So these are some of the learnings that we had. And with that, thank you very much for the time that I was able to spend with you.
Thank you so much, Marcus, for giving such a good overview of what has been happening in this region, in the set of measures, and also those 5 key policy learnings that really encapsulate some of the points we've already been discussing. We have a bit of time, about 10 minutes for discussion, and I have received a few questions from our audience that I would like to pose to our panelists. So let me start with Sarang and Brian. There's a curiosity always to know how is it possible to be commercially viable and support and engage low-income communities. So the question is, have your firms also been mapping the social impact? What strategies do you follow to avoid tensions between financial and social business goals while taking certain critical decisions within your firm? So by order, let's start with Sarang, if you'd like to answer that question, and then Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Martha. That's a good question. Of course, working with smaller farmer, especially with the low-skill farmer, we need to be more patient in our work. We need to appreciate and how to motivate farmer continue to improve the products. We have to form in our project. We form farmer in cooperative and register to the government where they can be more organized. They've been built in the capacity with the NGO partner, so they can access financing because they cannot rely on AMRO alone. I can tell you that 5 years ago, everything on AMRO. You can say financing, crop, production knowledge. They don't know what is the European market need, what is Western or United States need, China need. So they need a lot of investment from private company. If you think about the profit in the first time, we might not able to work for inclusive business. So we need to be sure in piloting project, we go with 100 farmers, 200 farmers, then we form them in groups and build them capacity. and they can access financing. They can have own working capital. They can raise, let's say, the shares among their group. Then they can have certain amount of capital. Then they can work in the group producing the crop that Umbro need. I can tell you in the first year one, year two, Umbro had to bring the cash in the truck, full of cash in the trucks. Farmer did not believe us that we are the company, paid them good price, commit. They even don't have a bank account. They don't know how to use bank account. They just need cash. You have cash, then give the rice. Then they didn't follow our training course in year one, year two. But Amro, we understand the farmer expectation, wife, and then we follow them. At the meantime, we provide them business. You have to open account. You need to have a governing board, and then you can have credit from the bank. So year two, year three, then think better because they follow our advice and then business grow. We have a start work with $20,000 per year. And now we are reaching almost $10 million a year, about 7 years when we start project. Then we don't need to have 10 million cash, and those money can be financed by the FI developing partner, impact investor, so they can jump in helping those farmers. So we can say now we are a lot better. Government support a lot, and the impact investors financing. So what Amru do, just try innovation. You try to develop their products, finding the niche market, fulfill the new trends of the market demand, improve their weakness. Then the way going together, because farmer, they have their products. I can say farmer is like diamond. They just need to innovate their product. They can have their diamond there. They should not go to find this diamond in another country, but in their own land. They can convert it and more high value price, and income is generated. So that's somehow we do. In the year one to year two, I believe it's very hard. Critical thinking, think about profit. No, but you think about medium and long term. I think IB is a good model for the medium and long term business. Yeah. Thank you, Mata. My share.
Thank you very much for sharing this. The need to think medium, long term. And also, I see some of these features of human-centered design and innovation where you put at the center understanding your user, your farmer, and the needs that they have in terms of support, cash, patience, etc. Thank you very much. Brian, would you also like to share some thoughts on this? Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Yeah, okay. It's okay now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, almost similar to Mr. Songsaran. So we are doing lots of training with the farmers. Yeah, what we are looking at is the horizon, medium and long term. And of course, for the first time, it's hard to say, but for the third, the fourth, fifth year, so uh, we have taken the benefits, the supply chain to the business. At the same time, the social welfare for the farmers. And also what we are doing is the empowering woman, the spa therapist. So that's the investment of the company for the medium and long term investment. If we are talking about the short term, it's hard to say again. So the spa therapist, coming from the unfortunate families, and we are doing training, entrepreneurship, beautypreneurs, and uh, we can take the benefits, the franchisee happy because of the quality standard of the spa therapist, and so they can increase the business. And also, the franchisor is coming from us, so we also take take the benefit because of the standard, the standard of our spa therapists. So that's the win-win solutions what we are having now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, this notion of thinking medium to long term, if we want to include low income groups as part of the business. Let's now maybe here I have a couple of questions on how inclusive business are helping build back and address the challenges of put by COVID-19. Mel, I believe that you have some examples of how inclusive business have been responding in the Philippines. Will you be able to share with us?
Yes, actually, the example of Amru is very much close to an example that I'm going to talk about. This is about an agritourism farm in the province of Iloilo. So it's a 17-hectare farm called Ephrata Farms. Ephrata has provided regular employment to around, I mean, it's not that big, right? But around over 60 local workers and staff, and probably sources from around 200, over 200 farmer cooperative members. So before the pandemic, the revenue streams of Ephrata was 50% from the agritourism side and 50% from the farming side. The lockdowns in the Philippines forced the tourism facilities to close down. So now, you know, your 50% revenue is at stake. So what will the agritourism farm do in order to survive? So what it did in this case is it diverted a lot of its focus to the agribusiness side, given that the demand for agricultural products increased. While you have zero revenue from tourism, it increased significantly on the agriculture side. So that's what it did. In order also to help the staff retain the staff, what it did was it converted the hotel facilities into quarantine facilities, so that to a certain extent it's earning income and it can retain certain employees. It partnered with the government, with the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, to conduct trainings, to capacitate the farmers while the pandemic is happening, of course, with the proper safety and health protocols. No? So during the pandemic, it was able to, produce graduates, 350 rice farmers as scholars of the program, and 99 organic agricultural, as scholars. So you can see how the inclusive business pivots, because as Amru earlier, as Long earlier said, that the farmers tend to stick with the traditional farming technologies. The knowledge and the practices are all traditional, so it takes a while to train and retrain them in order for you to get that level of quality and productivity that you want. So there's a lot of that going on. So that's what, that's the good thing about inclusive business. You invest, you front load, but of course, what we're saying is here, the key here is really the private sector, the company. So we are hoping that, for example, with the proper policies and regulations in place, then we can accelerate the development of the inclusive business models, because not all of the expenses would just come from the government, but rather would be also shared from the private sector, but rather would also be shared with the government. Another business that's really, I think, a good example is engaging the global value chain of business is Franklin Baker Company. Franklin Baker, in partnership with Simrise and Absolute, which are at the higher end of the chain, because Franklin Baker buys the coconut from the farmers and then supplies desiccated coconut to Absolute, which is a spirits, produces spirits globally. I think it's a Swedish company, yeah, producing spirits. And then Simrise is a leading German producer of fragrances and flavorings. So they partnered together to implement a project to improve the coconut supply chain by integrating more sustainable practices into the farm management of coconut farmers. However, due to the pandemic, they cannot really, dive into implementing that easily. So for the meantime, they shifted to address the more immediate needs of the coconut farmers down the chain, through a series of COVID-19 response initiatives, distribution of emergency packs to farmers in several areas in the country, provision of planting materials, and training. So I suppose this is a good time to conduct that retraining, capacity building that we need while, people are available. So, and of course, they also trained them on backyard farming to generate an extra income for the farmers, and had some cash for work arrangement to engage the farmers in the construction, for example, of the demo farm in preparation for the full implementation of the project, repair of community water systems, completion of a coconut storage facility, all of which can also be used by the farmers in the farming and production of coconut. So we can see that many inclusive businesses are not just out there, donating face masks and other, COVID-related materials, but rather are also investing heavily in the training and retraining of the farmers down the chain. So that's I think those are some of the examples that I can share.
Thank you, Melanie, and I think your examples highlight again the need to innovate, to listen to what are the needs of the users, and to pivot the business model as opportunities arise, or to face the COVID-19 challenge. We are now over time, so we have 2 more minutes. But I would like to ask a question, a joint question to His Excellency Heng Soo-kung and to Marcus. I think there has been a great learning experience in ASEAN about how to promote inclusive businesses. So I would like to hear from His Excellency what he thinks was the most valuable element of this ASEAN collaboration to promote inclusive business. And then from Marcus, what you think, how we can encourage more South-South collaboration, maybe even beyond Southeast Asia. So first, His Excellency, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much, Martha. Of course, the inclusive business is quite important for the whole country in ASEAN. It's not only Cambodia. We might know that inclusive businesses create a triple win for the poor, for the societies, and also for the entrepreneurs. I do hope that within ASEAN, we're going to play a quite important role on this IB model company. We urge them, we push them, so that this whole IB model can work together on how we can provide the sustainable development and also a very resilient products to our poor. As you might know that the COVID-19 pandemic, they hit a lot to the whole world, and Cambodia in the same ways. We hit it by this kind of the COVID-19 pandemic, so that some part of the country have locked down, and many factories or handicraft are also closed, and some are suspended. So that within this, only IB that can help to provide the more such kind of like the work job to our poor people, for those in agriculture, of course, and agro industry. From Mr. Saron has been said for that the rice production is quite important within the period of pandemic, even though, and some other businesses like the agro industry or some other partners that provide a very good job for those farmers, even though. For this, I think that within the member state of ASEAN, we could work together on how we stand on this IB, and some other country might might have the same goal, and they work together on this IB, so that we gonna have more IB world, that many countries are working together to create the IB. However, within the ASEAN framework or within the ASEAN's components, we should have some kind like the ASEAN IB award, that we encourages all some other our company to become the IB model. And out of this, I also would like to suggest once again to the UNESCAP and also the IBAN, the OECDs and ASEANs, we should work together on the promote of the IB. And also we should suggest to the developed country like US, like EU or whatever like that, to provide some incentive, especially tax incentive or duty-free, quota-free for the for the IB model company. So that when we give of this kind of the incentive, I think not only the company in ASEAN country, but other countries they will go forward together on this, become their company to be IB model for a better even they can create good job for the poor, create more dignity for the poor, even though they can get more income by their own entrepreneurship, and also for very good for the society. So that within this, I think when we get more incentive or we get whatever like that, we suggested even award or even the tax incentive or duty-free, quota-free from the rich country. So that would be a very good strategy to develop the IB model within ASEAN member state and also some other state, I think. Once again, thanks so much, Martha, and thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. So very briefly, Marcus, over to you.
Yes, I think that's a key role of the development partners. You mentioned before that the majority of the audience here are development partners. So I would like to call to action that you look at your program, see how you can integrate inclusive business approaches in your programming, and then use the tools and instruments that have been developed in ASEAN to bring it into other geographies. We are doing it now in Africa, and we are inviting all the stakeholders to join us. And as His Excellency mentioned, work together to spread the word, create the awareness, and then use the example of Southeast Asia also in other geographies to advance inclusive business on the path to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thanks very much, Marcus. I would just like to thank the panelists because we are over time, and I would like to respect the timing for other sessions and the technical team. Three points that I take from today: the importance of patience, of encouraging businesses to pivot, or enabling or helping businesses to pivot, particularly to adapt to COVID-19, and last but not least, the great role that cooperation and partnerships and government action can have in promoting inclusive business. So thank you very much to all our 5 panelists and to our audience for sharing the experience of inclusive business and how they go beyond what the law requires to support low-income communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.